So good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully I can keep y'all still awake. There's a lot more fun facts that you're going to be learning, but always like to come out of these conferences learning about something new, not with a conference. So I was watching TV yesterday, and here's a fun fact. So apples come from Kazakhstan. The original seed of apples came from there, so something to think about. Not anything related to this, but hey, if you're in a trivia game, that's going to come up at some point. So again, welcome. I'm notorious for doing this to my folks, so if you are a staff in the Office of Bridge Design and Maintenance, I'm going to call you up right now. You stand up, because a lot of the work that happens is because of them, not because of me. So starting off with design, I'm looking at them right now. Andrew Morris, you want to stand up? And Kevin Taylor. And I'm not going to forget the BMU folks. Too late, Farah, so you started first. So, Farah, you want to stand up? Dale? And I was talking with Keith this morning because we had a little incident, so hopefully he forgives me. Keith? Brian, who does a lot of our data requests that I ask of him. And got a special place for Blue because he, first time I walked into a 3x3 post-tension box, that was a lot of fun to crawl in and find some things that were not there on the plans. And I'm not talking about details. So, but to that point, I think I've seen some folks here that do. Oh, that's right. Benita Patel as well. And as Robbie said, there's a lot more folks that do a lot of this hard work.
There are drivers. I'll cover that up.
Okay. But they are truly the folks that do a lot of the work that I stand on, and a lot of the praise goes to them. But I will say this, I also see folks that are designers, and my folks are probably getting sick of this, but to be a good bridge engineer, you have to do both. You have to do design and maintenance. The maintenance tells you that was not a good detail, don't ever do that again. So without further ado, we'll go through this real quick. This is the replacement part of the side of the house. So bridge replacement program. So we're going to talk about discussion points, truck weights, as Andrew had mentioned previously, bridge programming, bridge investments, and then the bridge replacement programs that we have. So what this slide shows, and I think a lot of designers know, is that the truck that we had in the 1940s is not the same truck that we have now. And going through with our truck weight bills through our Georgia legislature, they have proposed, and it's at some point going to be signed into law, to increase that weight by 10%. 10% doesn't mean too much for most folks, but for most bridge designers, it does make a difference, whether it's gross vehicle weight or axles. That drives a lot of our designs. That by no means is not the only thing that drives our design, but is one of the major things. And for bridge maintenance staff, for all DOTs, that is just an ever-evolving battle that you always constantly have to fight. So again, Office of Bridge Design and Maintenance, I emphasize that because, as Robbie said, two sides of the same coin. The Venn diagram to the left is the programming, design, and maintenance and inspection. And I always point out those overlaps. That's where all the good work happens, whether it's a designer talking to an inspector, a designer talking to a construction staff, or a district maintenance talking to our folks programming the bridges. We want to make sure we take all that input to make sure we're making the right investments in the right places. And to the right here, you're seeing our funding strategies, our budgets. We're currently roughly about $145 a year for replacements. Here, again, going through programming, we're going through a little bit of an evolution at GDOT, just setting our processes for how we vet and set a standard as far as the next 8 years as far as replacements. You can never get ahead fast enough as far as what you're replacing. I think for a lot of the folks here, the inventory is not static. Bridges always get older day by day. And depending on the traffic you get, the weight of those vehicles, the pounding they take, that deterioration curve does not stop. You may rest it with some overlay or rehab, but the beat goes on, so to speak. Here, just another part of what we're looking at, and I think a lot of folks know this term, is the life cycle cost analysis, a little bit of a deeper dive rather than just looking at bridge deck area for your cost. That informs us greatly in more detail what to replace, what approach makes sense. So that is something we're programmatically applying to our bridge replacements, also our discussions when we're looking at bridge preservation or rehab. Here's just a slide of the investments from our STIP years of FY21 and 24. $424 million per year. As you can see here, there's components: bridge set aside, bridge formula from the BIL law or bridge infrastructure law, and then bridge bonds when available. And I'll speak more in the next slides on these. Bridge replacement programs. This is where we do a lot of the work as far as the replacements. Again, our nod to the bridge maintenance lump sum that Robbie has and speak of. The bridge set-asides, that's where for our state routes and locals as well. But then we also have our focus because there's a lot of work to be done with the locals, and that's the three programs at the bottom here: the low-impact bridge program, the local bridge replacement program, and our state-funded bridge program. So bridge replacements, snapshot in 2022, 372 active projects. That's a little dated. There's probably a lot more as we've gone into the new year here. Looking at poor conditions, weight restrictions, critical features, temporary shoring, priority routes, again, life cycle costs, and then selected bridges focused on that data-driven analysis or approach. Low-impact bridge program, what we call LIBPs, that's for the locals, what we call your best bang for your buck. There is no financial input from them, really just agreeing to a detour. And on that program, about 108 bridges, probably a little bit more now, 50 open to date. And to this program, from selection to actually replacing the bridge, opening it, it's been averaging about 3 years. So that has been a really good program for us. And here's just an example of a county bridge being replaced down in Randolph County. Local bridge program from FY 18 to 24, 132 program bridges. Here, we do solicit some financial input from the locals in a term as far as right-of-way is concerned, and there's different tiers to it. That's been a good, very popular program as well, so much so that as counties are asking, we're having to tell them, look, there's a long queue that you're having to get into. But it is well needed, and we keep working with the locals on that. And then state funded, for those bridges that don't quite fit into that LIBP program, we use the state funds to capture those. 70 bridges programmed, 35 open. There's some difference in the approach as far as NEPA versus JEPA. It is LIBP-like, and there's $30 million a year on that in the budget. And just acknowledgement of the BIL, or bipartisan infrastructure law. We are going through the whole department, allocating those funds, assigning or selecting projects to assign those funds. Bond money, that's more in the purview of the legislature. When they are available, we'll apply them. Last time we had them was FY24, and we had a couple, I think 12 bridges that were applied to it. And here's an example of that, one of those bridges. I think I'm looking at the designers in front here. And it's the last slide. So the Georgia Bridge Inventory for ARPTA, just updated the slide as we're going through that nice downward trend. But I was talking to Andrew, at some point that's going to plateau, so that's going to be interesting to see at that point. And that's my last slide, and I just want to say again, repeat, these conferences are great for networking, to get to know the person that you know maybe well next to you or not. Make those connections. We do have a lot of work here in Georgia. In our partnership with FHWA and the consultants here, we need all that engineering brain trust because we got a lot of work. So without further ado, thank you.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.